Welcome to my 2022 year-end review. I'm going to show you all the stitching I did this year, both for my business, Lindy Stitches, and for my personal humanity, Stephanie Webb. This is the image I have chosen to represent 2022 and how it went for me. Holy cow! Holy cow, people! I don't even know what to say. Let's talk numbers. This is by far my favorite time of the entire Flosstube year. I love watching the whip parades. I love the reflection and the list making and the counting and feeling thankful. It's such a blessing. I want to give you a little comparison. For the last few years, I have averaged around 28, 29, 27 new releases, things that came out of my brain for Lindy Stitches and for the general pleasure of my customers. This year, I got out 42, which blows my mind. I had no idea I was far exceeding any other year in Lindy Stitches history. So when I count up my total for the year, I'm counting my regular releases, which go into my website and into my wholesale shops and distributors. I'm also counting special projects. So this year was the Bird Crush Club, which was huge. That was 13 new patterns toward that. I also had a lot of magazine appearances. I had the Jingle Ball. I participated in some retreats and some special boxes and designs exclusives for those, and it's just nuts. I think when I look back on this year, the two biggest things and pushes forward were the Bird Crush Club and, you know what I'm going to say next, the Jingle Ball. These two things far exceeded my expectations, hopes, and dreams. I'm blown away. I got nothing. So if we're talking about how many blessings I have earned or deserved that happened in 2022, the numbers are in. The number is a big fat 0, and I believe that with all of my heart. I am just thankful. We all know that you can work as hard as you can work, but there's so many factors totally out of my control, and so I'm very thankful for God's blessing, thankful for health, thankful for wonderful model stitchers who are the wind beneath my wings, and without whom I would hardly have a business. That would include Chris, Carrie, Paige, Allison, Pam, Denise, Mandy, and Jess, who sat in their homes and stitched these stitches so that I could release cool things, and I thank them. I've been blessed with a husband who gets in my messy life and bad days and encourages me. Chris Gilbert, who tramps over a hill and dale to take awesome bird pictures that I would never be able to take in a million years, and then join me for the Bird Crush Club. I'm thankful for my employee, Leslie, who comes over and does things that I consider boring. She does them with a smile. She loves my cats almost as much as I do. Thankful for my employee, Maddie, who folds all my charts, also with a smile. So I'm humble, I'm thankful, I'm just grateful, and grateful for you. Because all these people could help me, and what would it be if you didn't come and join me on YouTube and read my newsletter and do all these little things that in the end are helpful, and they're valuable, and they mean something to me. And so I'm thankful for you. I would apologize for acting like I'm giving some sort of presidential address, but I'm not sorry. These things need to be said. They're important. Amen. On to the stitching. Let's take a break from Lindy Stitches chatter for a bit and talk about my personal finishes. This year I had 7 let's get into it. The first two are big and I'm so proud of them. I love how this one turned out. This is Elizabeth Isles by the Scarlet Letter. It is a historic reproduction sampler. I decided to stitch it on 32 count vintage country mocha linen, which is an absolutely delightful fabric for stitching on in hand. It's 2/2. The colors are similar to what is charted, but I did amp up the saturation a bit. You can find my conversion on my website to see what threads I used. Love how that bird turned out. I also decided to alternate skin tones for the angel. In the chart, they are all a horribly pasty white, which is something I can relate to, but I wanted to add a little diversity to the angels. And here's how it looks. I also used my own lyric selections from Tom Rosenthal and Ben Folds, and it makes a nice little tribute to my children. Next up is my large Long Dog Samplers finish. This is the Templar Prophecy, and strangely enough, this was my New Year, New Start for the year 2020. And I don't know how much more perfect this could get for the last 2 years. There's dragons and unicorns, and this just says like pandemic and chaos to me. I absolutely love it. I finished it in 2022, early on in the year. I don't remember the name of the silk that is mostly used in this piece. You can definitely go back in my Flosstube videos and check it out. It was done on 36 count Picture This Plus Fog 2/2, which became a little tricky because I started doing it in hand, but it's done. It's wonderful. I love it. Definitely needs to get framed. Next up, a little Halloween finish. This is Heart in Hand Halloween Square Dance. Loved working on this. It's just so tiny and cute and happy. There's nothing more to say. This pattern comes in 3 parts, and it's just a joy to put together. He sees you when you're sleeping, so watch out. This is Sweet Santa by Rhonda's Originals. I heard your feedback. You want an overdying DMC tutorial because that's what I used for this. Overdyed my own DMC. This was just a lovely, fun stitch. And he's huge, but he went kind of quick. Go away, creep. Next up is Must Be Santa by the Prairie Schooler. Love this finish. Just a few colors. It's a pretty big size, but not too big, so it could definitely make a quick stitch. And he's a creep too. Okay, the next 2 projects got finished between the time of the recording and the time of the posting, so they get counted as finishes, but you're gonna have to check back with me to see the actual finish. This is Christmas Countdown by Erica Michaels. It was a Jingle Ball exclusive, and I finished it. I did. I'll show you later. But this was so fun. Such a quick daily stitch to just stitch that number and get that little progress. Loved working on this project. Next up is a luggage tag. These are kits that I started carrying in my store, and this was the perfect car project. Perfect travel stitch. So they give you everything you need to make this genuine leather luggage tag, and they give you all the letters and all the floss, and it's just so easy to work on. I finished it, and I will show you in my next Flosstube video, but those kits are in my store. Part 2. Here are things that came from my brain. Here are the patterns I designed for Lindy Stitches this year for regular release, which means you can find all these patterns in my store. Don't worry, I'm not showing you all 42 things I designed this year. The special projects, for the most part, are just reserved for release throughout 2023, so you'll see them then. But here are my regular releases. First up, we have Marvelous World. This was a 4-part stitch along that I did from January to April in the beginning of this year, and then it came out all together as a regular release. I love this pattern. I think it's beautiful. It didn't sell well, if I'm going to be completely honest, but I loved working on it. It's so tropical and funky and wonderful. Here is the first installment of my Cats in the Garden series. There are 4 different parts to this series, one for each season. So there's a different cat and different blooms for each pattern. They're all suited for a 5x7 frame for easy finishing. This is the spring cat, a calico, and the title is Prancing Through the Tulips. I loved working on this series and it was pretty popular. Next up is my little Lent stitch. This one is called Chosen Precious Child, and it's actually the 3rd part of this hymn, which is Alas, and Did My Savior Bleed. I've made all of these into cute little roll-ups, and this is how the finish looks, and you secure it with a button. But there is Chosen Precious Child. Next up, this was a limited edition kit. This is called Loose Rooster. You might be able to scour the internet and still get your hands on one of these kits, but this was a Nashville release and I sold out of it. But I just love this quirky little rooster, and Lois from Lady Creates came up with this finishing idea and made it into a kit. Super cute. This is Wandering Sheep. This was another Nashville release. I absolutely love this hymn, and I love how this black and slightly purple sheep came out. He is absolutely adorable. I put my daughter's initials on the back of the sheep, but you could cover that up or put your own initials in there if preferred, and it fits in an 8x10. This was my first kind of occasions piece. This is a birth sampler set. There's 2 different pieces. This is the framed birth sampler, and it fits in an 8x10, and you get a full alphabet so that you can chart out the new baby's name. I used some beautiful classic color works in this piece and stitched it on this mini dot linen that I fell in love with and have charted on a few times. The other piece in this pattern is this cute little bag that says, "Shh, someone new is here." And I love how this turned out with these fabrics. I just think it's so classy and cute, and it's gender neutral with those colors. I think it's just so adorable. I'd love to like put some flowers in that, hang it on a doorknob. Really cute. So that's Little Stranger Birth Sampler set. Definitely one of my favorites from the year. This is my second collaboration with Janine McGowan of The Blue Flower. This is Spring Forest Scrapbook, and we both contributed squares to this little project. So there's a part 1 and a part 2, one from me, one from her, and you can put them together to make this adorable little scrapbook piece. I think this is stunning, whimsical, and wonderful, which is what Janine and I try to be every day. Am I right, friend? Here is part 2 of the Cats in the Garden series. This is Stretching in the Daisies, a beautiful little tabby doing a classic downward cat pose. I just love this one. The paws, the little furry shanks on the back. I mean, come on. This is a 4-part series. There's 4 little patterns in this. They're all little proverbs, and the whole set is called Let Me Not Forget. So 4 little wise sayings. You can stitch them all on a fat quarter of linen using the same color palette, and I really enjoyed putting these together. It's always good to have little words of wisdom on your wall that you can look out and remember throughout the day. This one is the funny one of the set. Next up is Wildflowers and Keats. Please ignore the lint that I didn't see on the front of this piece. I charted in Cosmo for this one, and I just think it's really a sweet quote. If I am destined to be happy with you here, how short is the longest life? It's my 20th wedding anniversary this year, so had that in mind on that piece. This is Shining Fish. It's a quote by Robert Bly, who's an American poet, and I was absolutely astounded to get permission to use these words. I get a lot of suggestions of things I could use, things people are interested in seeing. A lot of times I'm not able to execute their ideas, but Linda Green sent me these words and I knew I had to try. I love how it turned out. I hope I did some sort of justice to how beautiful this poem is, but nevertheless, it still hits me in all the feels. I hope you like it too. You might not have seen this pattern before. This is Love and Prickles. I always include a freebie postcard I try to throw one in every physical order. It's just this cute little porcupine guy with his blooms, and I think it turned out really sweet. I finished it on this cheap little Hobby Lobby fake wooden jewelry box, but I do really like how it turned out. This is part 3, the fall edition of Cats in a Garden. This is Bathing in the Asters with a black tuxedo cat. And if you've seen anything cuter than those little cat toes sticking out, well, you're lying. I love stitching cat whiskers. They're the best part. I love how this one turned out. Speaking of cats, here's my best friend Walter. I am a weird Maine Coon owner who holds their cat weird ways, so you can appreciate how large he is. Walter is the perfect teddy bear of a cat, and I love him. Here is Emo Birds. Probably another favorite, because why wouldn't you want this on your wall? I don't know. I love the whisper boas and the fuzzy haunches on these vultures. They are just so funny. It's like they're emo, but you can't really take them all that seriously because look at those eyes. I mean, they're just adorable. The spider webs. Perfection. Here's Bury Me With My Needle. This was a top seller for the year. I think partially inspired by this gorgeous mustard fabric. This is Jack's Rum Linen by Fabrics by Stephanie. I did release a Ada and Lugana version of this, a little modification. You can find that on my website if you search for it. Really cute. Just, burial instructions that you should hang on the wall so people don't forget. Bury me with my needle and some linen in my hand, for I would not be idle when I reach the promised land. Here is my first book. I'm so proud of this. This is a spooky book. It has 6 projects in it. It took a lot of formatting work, but it turned out wonderful. Glossy pages, clear pictures. I'm kind of proud of this. Here's the things you can find inside. Candy Corn Addict. Blackbird Pie. So adorable. This is Broomstick Brigade. I love this flat ornament, and I love how it hangs. Really cute. Grave Fellows. 3 chums hanging out together in the graveyard. Here is Shiny Things. This was my first needle book that I designed, so you will find the pattern and full finishing instructions. So this needle book has a felt page in the middle for your needles. It also has a pocket. Easy to do. This is Goth Chicken, and if you followed my studio vlogs that I did earlier this year, you got to see his charting and creation. That was kind of fun to do with you guys. But I love this piece. Speaking of needle books, this is not included in Spooky Book. This is a kit that I released this year. This is called Sweater Vest Weather. It is the same size and process as the needle book I just showed you. with the Lugana on the outside and then the pocket on the inside. My mother-in-law was gracious enough to make tons of sets of these beautiful pins to go in the middle. But I really like making these needle books. I think they're really cute, even if you just want to use it as a decoration. Adorable. How did we make it to Christmas already? Here's Merry Beard Season. This was a release that came out this year, this vintage Santa. I've been surprised at how many finishes I've seen of this happy guy across Instagram, so thanks for your enthusiasm for him. This is the conclusion of the Cats in the Garden. This is napping in the poinsettias. And here, this little gray tabby, unsuccessfully waiting for Santa Claus. He fell asleep. Loved working on this project. This is December Down Under, featuring 5 different ornaments with Australian and New Zealand creatures and Christmas motifs on them. I did my best to pay tribute to our Southern Hemisphere friends who celebrate a very warm and balmy Christmas. And as I'm recording this in December, that sounds like really, really appealing. Like, grill me some food. Yes, please. Loved all the creatures and all the creature research that went into making those patterns. Now we're into the Bird Crush Club. I am not going to show you all 12. I'm going to show you 2 because they're coming out throughout this year. This club started with Stellar's J, and wow, was he a great way to kick off the club. I had no idea how popular the Stellar's J would be. I'm still getting emails about him. He's so cute. All the club pieces fit in these frames. They're 6-inch circle frames by Signed and Numbered on Etsy. Here's the second bird I'm going to show you. This was March's bird, the broad-billed hummingbird. So the birds will come with the high-quality picture from Chris Gilbert, and that's what I used to create the patterns that are featured throughout the year. There's 12 altogether, and I'm looking forward to releasing them to the world. They kind of were kept a secret. I think that's a good representation of the things that went on in Lindy Stitches. Let's talk about personal works in progress, things that I'm still plugging away at that aren't complete yet, but I'm still enjoying. This is Red Troublemakers by RTO. It features artwork by Maria Pavlova. I love it. I did put 600 or 700 stitches on it this year. I worked on it once, and it's fun when I'm in the mood. The problem is I'm rarely in the mood to sit down and work on this full coverage piece, but I think eventually I will finish it and it will be on my wall, and I'll be glad I plugged through. Next up is Pride and Prejudice by Gara. Love this project. I am not very far in it because it's not a very old whip and I haven't worked on it very much, but I did make it across the top. Love the colors in this. I decided to use a dark blue linen instead of doing all the blue background stitches, and I think that's going to work out great. This is Cooper by Kathy Barrick. I've wanted to stitch this for quite some time. Stitching him on Old Stationery by Seraphim Linen, 32 count, 2/2. And he doesn't have any wings, so he looks like a bowling pin. I am brightening his colors a little bit so that he looks more like a macaw, but he's so handsome. This is Willoughby, my other best friend. Look how big he is! He's only 2 years old. He is full of spit and vinegar, and he's grumpy in this clip because I woke him up. But his grumpy face is really cute. He definitely has the personality of a little brother. This is Spring Cleanup by Mama Witch X Stitch. I have a thing for cut through houses, and this is a cut through butternut squash, so I had to do it, but I didn't get very far. Stitching this on a 32 count Ariel linen by Picture This Plus. Need to put more stitches in on that. Here's Folk House by Not Forgotten Farm, another cut through. I am determined to have a collection of cut throughs. I did kind of choose my own colors, and I think it's looking really cute. So that's Walter. There will be another cat who will be Willoughby, and then that's adorable. I don't care what you think. That's adorable. Here's Feed the Deer by Teresa Kogut. This was a Jingle Ball exclusive, so you can't get your hands on it right now, but it will be released in 2023. Did not make it very far. Started this on a 30 count blush linen by Weeks Dye Works, and I have 2 flying betta fish. That's all I have at this point. Just kidding, they're crows. Next up, Prairie Schooler, The Night Before Christmas. I think this whip is at least 2 years old, maybe 3. I don't know why I don't stick with it very long. It's adorable. Look at it. I mean, come on. I'm stitching it on a Picture This Plus linen called Tidal, 2/2 on a 32 count. And I don't know, I'm just putzing along. Welcome to the final section of this video, which starts with a giveaway. Leave me a comment using the word resolution. Tell me about your New Year's resolution or lack thereof down below, and I will send you a Lindy Stitches pattern of your choice and a book from the 6 books that I'm about to mention. So there you go. Leave your New Year's resolution down below. I love New Year's, it's just the best. I've been looking through my list of books that I read this year, and I wanna share them with you. Books are great. Just like stitching, they're so relaxing and helpful for our brains. I did not read as much as I would have liked to this year. I have to admit that I spent too much time on my phone, which I'm sure most of us are guilty of, and that is definitely something I want to cut back on in the new year. TikTok was a bad thing for me, and it needs to go. It's a black hole, and I wish I had 10 more books on this list instead of TikTok on my phone. So that's going to be a change I'm going to be making. Nevertheless, I read some great books this year. I almost hit 40. I probably will hit 40 before the new year actually starts. That's a low number for me. I can do better. There were weeks where I didn't read. So let's get into it. I have 6 that I would like to recommend to you. I'm not the best at talking about books, so let's stumble on through. I have 2 fiction, 2 nonfiction, and a book of poetry. Let's start with a fiction book. I absolutely love The Dutch House by Anne Patchett, specifically the audiobook version narrated by Tom Hanks. If you go look at the reviews of this book on Goodreads, everyone is talking about Tom Hanks reading this book, and for good reason. Tom Hanks is an amazing narrator. I've always loved his voice and how he talks. I am a geriatric millennial, and so Tom Hanks, I don't know how you could be in my age bracket and like not be a fan of Tom Hanks, unless you're objecting to his personal life, but that's a whole different story. I loved this book. It is not a thriller, it's not a high crime, it's not a sensational read, it's just It's a book about relationships, specifically a brother and a sister, and their relationship with their father. Their mother has abandoned them. It talks about how that feels, and then their father decides to get remarried to this woman that they're not a fan of. And I mean, that sounds very basic, but the way Ann Patchett writes, and then the way Tom narrates the characters is so good. Highly enjoyable. The second we'll talk about is a nonfiction. I needed this book so much. This is Be Still My Soul by Nancy Guthrie. I went through something very difficult this year, and a friend sent me this, and she said, you know, there's two types of people. There's the type of people who are going through something really, really hard and absolutely cannot read a book about it. And there's the type of people who need a book. I'm the type of person who needs a book. This has very short chapters in it. They are kind of just collections of the best writings about suffering and God's purpose in suffering, and how he helps us in times of suffering. Obviously, you can tell by the way I'm talking, it's a Christian book based on the Bible. But if you're in that camp and you need a little pick-me-up, if you're going through some suffering, highly recommend. The chapters are nice and short, but they're just like the creme de la creme of writings about suffering from people like Tim Keller, Spurgeon, Bonhoeffer, John Newton, Abraham Kuyper. So when I was kind of reeling with what I was going through and having a hard time, you know, it's hard to talk to yourself and it's hard to process. I would just get up and I would read one of these chapters, and it would help me to be comforted and also think correctly. So I really, really recommend this book for you or for a friend who's going through something really hard. Book of poetry. I bought this big volume called Devotions of Mary Oliver's poetry. Did not regret. I mean, this is a thick volume. It's a collection of, I think she selected them, of a lot of her poems, and this is the best of the best, and it's just lovely. Mary Oliver's poems are quite frankly breathtaking sometimes, and it's just a great volume to like slow down, catch up to your soul, take a moment, look around you, calm down, appreciate life again. I really love this volume of poetry, and I will definitely reread it. The next book I read on my tablet, but here's what it looks like. It is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is not like a new novel or anything. I am new to Susanna Clarke, had never read anything by her. This got me out of a reading slump. So this was like weeks of me being bad and refusing to slow down and read and doing stupid other more mindless things instead. And I was like, okay, enough's enough. Let's get back to it. And I picked up this book and I read it in 24 hours. It is that good. It's about this character called Piranesi, and he's in this really weird world of like Greek architecture, and there's like statues everywhere. It's really strange, really atmospheric, like he's living a really simple life of just like hunting for fish and like observing the tides that come in, and you as the reader, you're like, what is going on? Like, why is he here? But Piranesi himself is like this happy, contented person, like joyful in his life of like going about this strange world, but then there's like dead bodies, and there's other things that are like throwing up red flags in your mind of like, yeah, this is not right. Something is going on, and this guy is like happily oblivious. So this feeling of like, what is going on with this happy person that I'm all of a sudden caring about? It is a great mystery. I adored it. Obviously, I read it in 24 hours. It's a great read if you're looking to get back into fiction. Would highly recommend. Second nonfiction book I would absolutely recommend. Misreading Scripture with Western Eyes. This book blew my mind. If you're a Bible fan, I think you need to read it. It is so good. It is about how we misread Scripture because we live in the Western modern world and we're picking up an ancient Eastern text and we're misreading it. We think we know what things mean, and this doesn't go for like the whole Bible. Like, because we're from the West and because we live in 2022, we can't understand any of the Bible. No, this is more about like the cultural implications that would have been obvious and would have been obvious to the Bible reader 2,000 years ago that are no longer obvious to us because we don't live in the Eastern world and we don't know what these things mean. So there's the author talks about all sorts of things, everything from like maps to unspoken things between two cultural groups that might be in the same story. I don't know. It's not spelled out for me, so I don't know these things. Here's a few examples, and I would just say read the book. I think it's very readable and it's very intriguing, and it will just encourage you to do a little bit more digging. Don't assume that you know what things mean when you read them, because you're reading them in a whole different time. You're reading them in a whole different culture. So concepts like hospitality, individualism versus a culture that's more based on community, those are totally different things. And so when I'm reading a story, I'm bringing my own context into the Bible and I'm interpreting it through that, when that's not, it wasn't written in my context. It was written in a context that really is kind of foreign to me. I just would highly recommend. I really appreciated everything about this book. Last book I want to talk about is Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. He is the author of All the Light We Cannot See. You might have read that, I don't know, 8 years ago or something. That was very popular. Cloud Cuckoo Land blew my mind. I loved this book so much. I think I'm gonna just reread it this year. It is so good. I don't like the title. The title reminds me of the Lego Movie, and this has like nothing to do with the Lego Movie, trust me. I will say I'm hesitant to like recommend this book without a caveat, and I won't go into specifics, but there is one part of the book I really had a problem with. I didn't like how a certain character played out, and that's all I'll say. So if you're reading it and you're like, whoa, anyway, Cloud Cuckoo Land covers some of like the biggest themes that you can cover, and it does it with like 7 different main characters all throughout history. So you have a couple characters who are before the fall of Constantinople. You have a boy who is born with a cleft palate, and his family is driven out of the town to live on the fringes of society. He falls in love with his bulls. He loves his bulls so much, and he is conscripted into the army to go bring down Constantinople. Around the same time, you also have a young girl with her sister who does needlework in the local monastery and lives a very constrained life and who longs for freedom. All the way, and you have a couple modern day characters, a boy who lives with a single mom who has probably undiagnosed level of autism or Asperger's and his struggles in school and for connection and friendship. And then you also have this girl who is in a spaceship with her parents heading toward a better land, stuck in this space capsule in their highly mechanized, computerized lives. Now, when I say that, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to read a story that has like a zillion main characters that's like constantly switching perspectives. This, I'm telling you, it's like, oh, don't leave this character, ah! And then you have to go off to the next character and you're like, oh yeah, I love this guy too. You know, it's so good. The main theme of the book is, you have all these misfits. All these characters are misfits. They don't fit into the world that was handed to them. And yet they want to somehow make their lives meaningful. They want to have connection. It is so good. It's about slipping the trap of suffering that we are all handed to with this crazy life. It's about human nature. It's about how do we connect to each other. Here's a quote. Ready? The truth is infinitely more complicated, and we are all beautiful, even as we are all part of the problem, and that to be a part of the problem is to be human. It was so moving. It's about how the world is a place of pain and suffering, and yet it's a beautiful place. Anyway, Cloud Cuckoo Land, I recommend. I always feel so inept trying to talk about books. I could never be a booktuber. My best wishes to you and your family here at the end of the year. I hope that you are counting your blessings and looking back and being thankful, looking forward and having hope. I hope to have another year chatting and being friends with you. I thank you for being a part of my craziness. I hope that I was a part of a little bit of your joy this year and stitching my patterns or hearing from me. I would love if you would subscribe to my channel so that we can keep talking. I would love if you would sign up for my newsletter. Regardless, I wish you peace and goodness and comfort and big virtual hug. Have a great New Year's Eve. That's all I had to say. Thanks for joining me, and let's have another awesome year together. Bye.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll talk a cup